Hola! Welcome back to my Spanish kitchen. Today, we're going to prepare a rice dish. And while you might think it would be paella, of course, because that's probably one of the most famous dishes of Spain, we're going to prepare a lesser known rice dish, but equally tasty, called arroz al horno, or baked rice. It's got a few different ingredients in it that we'll go over now and get into a little bit more detail as we prepare this. Of course, it starts with rice from the Valencian region, which is where most of the rice of Spain is grown. Then we're going to be adding to that 3 different types of meat. Pork ribs, cut in fairly big chunks, a couple of thick slices of bacon that we'll also cut up, and a couple of sausages called morcilla. You can buy morcilla in either onion base or meat base. I chose the onion base for today. We're going to need 1 whole head of garlic, a few tomatoes, 1 for slicing for the top of the dish when it goes in the oven, the other for grating to be part of the sauce. We'll also be cooking up some garbanzo beans and adding cooked garbanzo beans to the dish, so I have a little bit of homework to do yet on this. And chicken broth or water, your choice, olive oil, and 3 seasonings. The famous saffron of Spain, super popular and used all across the country. Pimenton, this is the sweet type of pimento, and some sea salt. And with that, we'll get started. I've already sliced up the potatoes that I talked about. They're relatively thick, maybe 1/2 inch. Same thing with the tomatoes. And the garlic, I peeled most of the paper off and then scored it just lightly with a knife like this. So it will release some of the essence of it as we cook it. And we're going to start by filling a pan like this with some olive oil. It's been about 5 minutes. The potatoes are nicely browned, a little on the edges. I'm going to remove them, set them to the side, drain the oil out because we won't need that much oil for the next part of this process. The oil is drained. The head of garlic is going to go back in. There's just a little bit of oil left in here. And the first thing I'm going to start to work on is the pork ribs. They're in fairly big chunks. That's good because this is going to brown now, but then once it's in the oven, it will finish cooking. I'm going to get all these pieces in, let them brown, and then we'll add the pork belly. And finally, the morcilla sausage or blood sausage. Okay, the meat is browning nicely. The pork belly is as well. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Mediterranean sea salt for everything. Toss that around a little bit, and then I'll be pulling the meat out. I'm going to add the morcilla sausage, and I want it to gently cook. I've also put a little pick through it to make sure it doesn't explode on us while we're cooking with it. And we're just going to let this gently cook for a little bit to cook around the outside and give a little bit more flavor to the dish. While we're doing that, I have 3 cups of hot water coming up to a boil so that when I'm ready, I'll be able to season this and add it to the whole dish. Okay, it's probably been 4 or 5 minutes. The morcilla is nicely browned. I'm going to set that to the side. I've got the water, which is boiling. I want to add the saffron. And I'm using a saffron powder today. A little bit of salt. Give it a stir. Now I'm going to start to make the sauce base, and I have grated a large tomato. And while we've got this hot, we're going to add this to the pan. We want to stir it around. And we want to get to where we're almost no liquid. It's been about 5 minutes. The tomatoes have pretty well given off all their liquid. I'm going to add 100 grams of, about a cup of cooked garbanzo beans. And I want to toss that around a bit. I'm going to add a little bit more salt, a little bit of sweet pimenton. Yeah, you could add a teaspoon to your liking. Very common to use pimenton, so this is a core spice ingredient of the kitchen. Now we're going to add rice. About 300 grams or a cup and a half of rice. I'm using bamba, which is a classic paella type rice from Valencia, but it's a beautiful rice to use for all kinds of dishes, and especially this one. And now I'm going to add the rice in. I want the rice to toast just a little bit. I'm going to stir this around. And now I'm going to let this cook just a little bit so we get a bit of a toast on the rice before we go to the next step. Now, because I don't have as many pans as maybe other Spanish households might, I held the rice to the side. I returned the meat and the potatoes into the main pan with the garlic, which I'll position in a moment. And now I want to add all the rice and the garbanzo beans. I'm going to mix everything up. Now I'm going to add the hot water. I've seasoned it with salt and saffron. I want to mix everything in very well. And the next part of the dish is to add the tomatoes gently around the top. The morcilla sausage also goes on top. And now we're ready for the oven. This is what your dish will look like just before it's ready to go in the oven. Okay, the weather gods are with us. The oven's ready. The sun is shining. And right now we're exactly at 250 for temperature, which is just right, 250 centigrade. It's going to be at 250 for 10 minutes, and then it will naturally lower. We want it to be about 230 for the second 10 minutes. And come on over and take a look at this fire. I don't want it too close to the fire because we don't want it to melt, but that's good because we know we're right at the right temperature.